Today we're back out in the shop and it's that time of year again, and I found this old relic way up in the attic. A lot of whirligigs were made with old fan propellers. Easy way to make a propeller. I'm going to take this guy apart, use him as a pattern for my seasonal whirligig, the Hokey Gobbler. Let's see what makes this guy's tail. It's kind of an interesting design. It's very smooth running. I'm going to take the propeller off. It's got a set screw here. A lot of this was probably with the original propeller from some kind of a fan, electric fan. I believe it was an electric fan. It's a metal propeller. There's this shaft here that is inside this hole. So we're going to see what this little mechanism is here. So it's just a shaft, and then it has a copper sheeting cap on here with a bushing. Looks like it's brazed in, bushing brazed in there to make it operate smoothly. So they had to make this removable. They had to make this tail part removable, because that holds this shaft. Has a piece of like brass or something brazed on, so it holds it. And then the propeller is held onto the shaft with a set screw here. I'm going to use this basically as a pattern for my own, and I'll use one of my propellers. Probably use, I'm thinking about maybe a 6-blader. Paint it up like Turkey Day. Taking the propeller off, I'm going to trace this. A few things on it I'm not really happy with, so I'm going to modify it to look a little more like this, where the feathers will be the propeller. Move the neck back a little bit. The head will be a little smaller. Tracing this lightly. Plus this one is a little big. It's awkward to mount because the legs are so long. You have to have an extra long pin to mount the legs. So I'm probably going to shorten the legs up a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and mark them because I kind of like the shape of the legs. And I want to mark where the pin is, the pivot pin. So that's the general shape. Let's see what that looks like. That's pretty good. Alright, I've sketched this out here now. I'm trying to revise this a little bit and get it to look more like a turkey. It's not final until I cut it out with the saw and the wood. That's what I came up with for right now. Alright, there's the basic pattern, subject to change and modification as necessary. You can see his feet are quite a bit smaller. That's so he doesn't stick up too high and you don't have to have a great big pivot shaft. So let's bring this guy into focus. And I'll lay this on top. Now we're getting there. Okay, right here, I'm drilling the 1/4-inch hole for the pivot pin, the pivot bearing on the turkey. I'm holding this in a vise. The vise is anchored to the table, so I get it exactly straight. Little test. Then next step is going to be cut the propeller hub and cut some blades out. Hubs. A Sears Craftsman 7.5 inch. It's old. It's I think I bought it in 1993 and it was old then. It still gets the job done. I have the miter gauge set up with the clamp and the extension. This is the way I do it. I've shown this in at least 3 other videos that go into the detail of it. I am making an 8-blade hub. Okay, in order to make an 8-blade hub, you have to divide 360, which is the number of degrees in a complete circle. Divide 360 by 8, divided by 8 equals 45 degrees. 45 degrees, each of these cuts is 45 degrees apart. I marked it out with a circle and a protractor on a piece of paper, and then I marked this very carefully every 45 degrees. You can see these lines. When I put the blank, by the way, the blank is cut out from a piece of poplar here. This is a scrap piece, and you can see I've got some smaller blanks marked out, but these are the larger ones. I have an index line here drawn right here. You could draw it, you know, on the side here too if you wanted. I think it's easier to see for me on the top. And I take the hub and I put it on here. Screw this in snug, and then I line this up directly with the line. And as long as you get each one on the same spot as you rotate it, it doesn't matter which way you rotate it as you go around. I usually go backwards. I make a cut, turn it to the next index line here. You can see that. Make a cut, turn it backwards to the same way until I have them all finished. So that's what the setup looks like. You just slide it across the blade one time, like so. Pull it back out, rotate it 45 degrees to your next line, repeat. Okay, that's how I made this hub for the turkey. 45 degrees for 8 blades. Okay, I'm trying out the tail feathers. So I've got these blades. These are about 6 1/4 inches. I'm a fan of bigger blades, catch more wind, look more dramatic. So about like that. It's going to look something like that. Alright, and then I have to decide on the shape of the tail feathers.
So I have 8 of these to cut out. They're tapered. I want the tapered edges to look like, you know, turkey feathers or whatever. I have this tapering jig that my father made. It rests up against the rip fence, and then it has an adjustable angle and a stop here. It holds the work as you push it through with the handle. So it cuts a perfect angle every time. So I'll do a few of those to demonstrate. All one side and then flip it over into the other side because it's a little bit different angle. So the other side has a little bit more angle. I loosen this screw right here. And just pull it out. I'm going to have to move the rip fence a little bit further away from the blade. Just pull this out. Needs a little more. That looks good. That's going to do it. Cut one piece on this test piece first. Now to make sure I have these on the right side, I still have my ink line from the circle cut. So when I cut the first taper on this side, I had it up. And on this, all these are facing down, so I know I'm on the other side. One more. Una más. Last one. Okay. Good, good, good. To be careful on one of these multi-blade ones because it gets really thin down here near the hub and near the center. And if your blades are thick and you try to force them in, it's just going to split the wood. And if they're all thick, then you know each one's going to push the next one. That one probably ought to be sanded a little bit. I'm going to sand these a little extra because they're a little tight. That guy's good. Alright, we'll give these 4 a little sanding. I just sanded everything down and smoothed it. I didn't think that would be really good video. But I did make this kind of a clip. The plywood, I don't like using plywood as a rule, but this is the only piece I had handy. This piece of 3/8, old piece of 3/8 inch plywood. For the propeller to screw into, I need something substantial. So I made this little, this is just cut up piece of 2x4. It's going to go on here, it's going to glue on. And then that'll accept the screw for the propeller. Give it a little extra strength. Now on these propellers, I thought I'd do something a little different. I want to give them a little flair and a little extra motion. So every other propeller is going to, I cut the edges off like this at an angle. Because, or here's for the straight ones. Difference here in these blades. See how one's angled and one's straight right here. The reason I did that, it's going to give the propeller is supposed to be like the feathers of a male turkey. So I was going to have these flare out instead of being just straight like an airplane propeller. These are going to flare out a little bit. So I'll show you what I mean. If you put it on a flat surface, these will be up. And when you do that, if you just have the base of the blade flat and you flare it up from a flat surface, then you get this huge gap here. You don't get very much adhesion area for the glue, for the blade to hold in. So it's a chance it could, over time with the expansion of the wood and the rain and the heat, it could just break out. So that's why I cut these at an angle. Then I was thinking, well, I was going to do them all that way, but it might be interesting if the blades were to change. So some are going to be flared and some are going to be straight. And it'll give it an interesting pattern, I believe, when it spins. I'll go ahead and glue these up and see how it turns out. I use this Titebond. I think I'm gonna I've tried some Gorilla Glue, but it foams up and pretty expensive. So this is just going to be my old fallback glue. Titebond Premium. It's not their lowest brand, it's not their highest. But it just seems to work real well. All right, I'll set that aside to dry. Just like that. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to glue up the mount, propeller shaft mount. I don't know what you want to call it. Go a little higher with that. I'll use this. It's longer than a regular clamp. Set that aside to dry. That's the propeller mount.